people? Thanks for tuning in to another Legion Season 2 review, this time kicking into Episode 2. If you wanted to look back at our review for Episode 1, that will be posted here on our channel. Now, if you wanted to look into some of the Season 1 content that we talked about, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to dig for that one a little bit in our shows. I know we addressed that if I recall, around Episode 30, but if I get that exact timestamp in that exact episode, I'll be sure to put that in the description for you guys if you wanted to jump and sort of get our take on this series and where we based it, sort of what we were thinking at the time. All right, here we go. So we're still in the middle of the hunt for the Shadow King's body, with David finding himself really conflicted over what he just saw through his regained memories that, of course, the audience is let in on at the end of last episode. Now, again, quick disclaimer, of course, if there's any element of this that you want to wait for, that you don't want spoiled or anything like that, 'cause of course, we're going to do a review, we are going to be talking about plot details, be sure you have been warned about that. Otherwise, keep listening. So, David has been instructed to do, or requested to do, the very thing that the division is setting him up not to do. If anything, Dave and his group are really being set up like a hunt and kill team to sniff out the Shadow King so he can be, well, wiped out, frankly. David spends a lot of time grappling with this, trying to figure out what it means. And one thing that I didn't go into a whole lot of detail about last episode that persists in this episode is the concept of an idea, how an idea can by itself doesn't necessarily have power, and all the power that is. I like this little evolution from this concept of the Inception movie, even. But if anything, it gains power based on an agreement of reality. And if there's a conflict in what reality actually is, this is something that starts to lead to psychosis, according to sort of like the little narrative we get on this. And we get a really interesting visual, this idea of a young chick being born, just coming right out of an egg, and as opposed to a malformed, corrupted chick covered in this black ichor, sort of representing psychosis and things like that, and um, the idea of a corrupted mind, a corrupted idea, the damage that can be done if a mind is purposely misled from the very beginning into a twisted concept or a twisted idea. And you see hints of this all over the previous episode, all over this episode as well. There's this piece of imagery used. There's almost like this trail of really dark ink used to represent all the corrupted idea itself, and like the malformed thing that it actually is. And we see this in any scenes that involve sort of in any of like the psychic exploration. We haven't seen this cross into the real world yet, but it still spooks you out because you look and you see a trail and you start to think, wait, is this breaking some kind of barrier? Is this not quite what I think it is? Really like that. Really, really cool image, and also connecting it straight to the audience, straight to the viewer. Not something that I expected from Legion. Keeping that pattern of being very direct, but also very explanatory with its concept, where things are heading, the overarching themes that we're seeing here. Good stuff, real good stuff. So David is helping, begins to assist Oliver, the Shadow King, with this plot, and sort of misleads his team out into the desert. Says that is where he senses the Shadow King actually is, when in reality he draws cover for the Shadow King to sneak into the facility of the division while they're away and wreak havoc, looking for his body. Now, the idea is, at least Oliver assumes, that it's somewhere there. He doesn't know where. David himself actually doesn't know where it is yet either, but the Shadow King gets a chance to do his own snooping and go check into things there. So even though they don't find the body, they do inflict a crazy amount of casualties. And this is one of the another one of the times we start to see all the crazy psychic battles and the things that we see happening in characters' minds start to take real form here. You got a bunch of soldiers that just get straight turned into ashes. One gets just turned into a pig on the spot, and it shows that this is not just limited to one mind. The crazy stuff you see happen in the series can go anywhere at this point, or almost at any time. I gotta say though, it's interesting seeing the evolution of that conflict, what David's trying to deal with, trying to keep this sort of hidden secret from the group, and also for Sid, he's in this weird spot where he trusts and loves Sid and wouldn't want to rat out her secret, but feels that if he tells the current Sid in the present, what the future Sid said, that somehow he's twisting that out of proportion. It's a mess in his own head, and he doesn't even want to deal with that. So for now, he plays along with the diversion. Now, one thing I do like here as well is Lenny, of course, who's still captive by the Shadow King. He does, well, frankly, she doesn't have anywhere to exist, of course. Uh, this is really cool because Aubrey Plaza, the Lenny's actress, she really gets a chance to show her range. I think just in this episode, she really goes from the sort of crazed, intimidating, powerful figure Shadow King is, and then to sort of this like schizo kind of hapless, aimless character who just wants to get out, who just wants a body again, who just wants to stop all this stuff and just get out of the rat race and just go live on her own. In fact, she even voices this to Farouk. He said, "Well, now you're meeting David face to face. Hey, you got Oliver. Why don't I just go out the back door?" And I mean, Farouk doesn't really give an inch. He really just answers her question with the question, "Okay, uh, where would you go? You don't have a body." And then she starts talking about what she'd do, and then he just kind of further questions her. Well, okay, what next? And then what next? And she really just runs out of answers for that. So I'm wondering if she's really going to have the ability to have any influence over the Shadow King himself. How much can she actually do right now? Will she be an element that ends up undoing him, or will she really ultimately sort of be a rogue agent against David and being the key weapon that gets him? So David has still a very strong concept of who she is, and they get a couple of funny interactions. One's right at the start of this episode where they're on a carousel, and they're just conspiring about what to do with the search, about distracting the division and everything else. So that was fun. It's kind of like a quick throwback to episode 1, but season 1 rather. But we're right back on track again. I think with a really clear shot at where things are heading, the overall direction for the episode. Now, the thing I enjoyed most about this was David getting a chance to go back into their cerebro, quote unquote, and expand his consciousness again, this time with a different twist and different idea. Now, Carrie is sort of inside out right now. Instead of the science, his scientific side manifesting itself, he's sort of inverted, and his brawler self is on the outside, but he's still able to have enough conversation with her to activate the device and get David into what he needs to do. Once David's in, he asks if there's a way to expand his consciousness to the point where he could reach forward in time. It's a really dangerous act, but they go for it anyway, and it turns out it actually works. David ends up throwing his consciousness far, far, far forward. We don't know how far in the future, but he does so far and so powerfully that he actually manages to summon the future version of Sid that he saw in the ball. Sid can't believe this. She's just shocked that this shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't be able to do this. But hey, don't underestimate Xavier's son. Anyway, there's a conversation there with David trying to get more answers. This time, Sid can actually speak, sort of tell him more. The visual direction for the scene was awesome too. This concept of like this cutting, scratching film, this broken style that really made things seem very haphazard, almost glitched, like David had been very just jaggedly inserted. at that point in time. He was almost like a thorn that wasn't supposed to be where he was at that moment. But during their conversation, Sid reveals, well, the reason why I told you to do this, why I told you to go after this body, is because we're going to need Farouk. The future is terrible. We end up running into someone that it just pretty much threatens mankind. It's like with extinction. And while Farouk is terrible, while he murdered, we're going to need that power to deal with this, whatever this is. So we don't have a name for this figure or whatever it is, or whatever Sid seems to be fighting against in this future. She does let David know that he, I, I suppose, is dead, but won't exactly tell him how, or just says it's complicated. So it's sort of hard to imagine a figure like David just outright dying right now with such a powerful consciousness. I almost see him existing as something else, or a different entity outside of just what he currently is now, or just in one shell. But so David, with this new clarity, he rededicates himself to helping Farouk. He tells the current Sid, the present Sid, about what he's been told. She's blown away by this. All the while, he's trying to dodge suspicion. At this point, Admiral Fukuyama and many others in division are suspecting him of collusion, expecting him of lying, and trying to mislead everyone on this mission. And so David's trying to really run cover fire for himself without really anyone else to pitch for him. So whether we're going to see an all-out war break out eventually, or some flash of the Shadow King actually living up to his end of the bargain, David specifically implicitly says, hey, I'm going to help you, but you can't murder anymore. You can't do this. Very reluctantly agrees, and it will be really interesting to see if he actually holds his end of that, if he actually sticks to that script or not. Meanwhile, we're still seeing the body, we believe, somewhere, at least I believe, what I've seen, somewhere there in the division. The last time we see it, the last flash at the end of this episode, he's sort of walking among a group that's affected by the catalyst, people with chattering teeth, and seems to not be affected by the sickness himself, but his something about his eyes are really strange. They have this skip to them. They're almost like it's almost like he's speed reading, but he's just constantly stuck in that state. So I don't know if there's a story behind that, or if there's something about it, because he hasn't. Every time we've seen the body, we haven't heard a word yet. But wherever that's going to go, it's it's looking like a lot of fun so far, and I'm enjoying it. I know especially during the time scene, David was talking with the future Sid. There were a couple of directions I went before the reveal of what they were actually fighting in the future, and so that changed just really quick and on a dime. I was almost wondering if Sid had gotten corrupted about this idea, this idea of this psychosis that they've been narrating and talking about throughout the show, if that had affected her in some way, or had she been contacted by the Shadow Lord or something like the Shadow King or something like that. But none of that. None of that at all. And I liked following that, and I really like that not being a drawn out point. So once again, cutting a bullet clean through. There's a very clear path so far, at least. Visual direction is on point in this episode again. And the music score itself is pretty nightmarish where it needs to be. I think this makes the audio experience pretty engrossing. I didn't have headphones on and listen to this, but I did have my made sure to get like surround system. And the way that we get David's consciousness and his own self-doubt sort of echoing in his mind off of left and right audio channels at just perfect time. Again, they've got some great sound engineering going on. So again, another point docked for time and time travel, and another half a point docked for a few other awkward elements. But other than that, I'm sticking right on track with an 8.5 out of 10. Really enjoying this so far. I'm liking where it's going to go. If this is going to, again, involve all-out war with the division, or will something else come of the Shadow Lord himself? Wow. I think I played too much Double Dragon because I'm really leaning on the Shadow Lord thing too hard. Shadow King. You get the idea, though. So, uh, I think one of the finalizing things we're going to see where this goes is David's conversation that he has directly with the Shadow King, not with Oliver, not with Lenny, but really just sits down and lays everything on the table. And the Shadow King still can't figure out, David, why are you sitting at the table with peons? You're basically a god. You need to accept your abilities, your powers, who you are, and what you can do, and simply enjoy that and live within that. David fights not to be allured, or fights the allure rather, this idea, and really tries to stick to his guns. He's trying to protect Sid. He's trying to protect those he cares about and the things that he constitutes reality as, whereas the Shadow King is constantly coaxing him, hey, look, you can rewrite reality to whatever script you want. This is your game. So what David does is going to be interesting to see his answer to these problems. And if Farouk does get his body, what's going to happen? Is everybody just going to get wiped out on the spot, or will he actually hang in with everyone long enough to deal with whatever they have to deal with in the future? I'm also wondering if David's even going to delve into that with him directly, but that remains to be seen. But all right, thank you all for listening. Thanks for tuning in. We will be having more weekly episodes of Legion reviews as they're released and as they come out. So stay tuned if you want more of this content. And of course, hey, leave a comment on your thoughts on this episode, whether you thought you liked the track it was on, whether there were some misleading parts that you just couldn't stand, whatever it is. Hey, we want to hear about it. So toss us a comment, and please, hey, toss a like too while you're at it. Thanks so much for listening, and have a good one. Bye. Hey people, thank you for tuning into this episode and taking a listen. If you like our content, if you like what you're listening to, if there's anything we go over, hey, please, we would not only love to hear more from you, but if great if you could throw some support. You can subscribe right below. Also, you can toss us a line anytime. That's ksawmedia@gmail.com. Of course, you can tune in for our channel anytime for movie reviews, game reviews, a lot of random wacky stuff. Who knows what you'll hear. And of course, our episode each week where we're bringing the nerdiest things we can find, pick up, and maybe not find. Maybe the stuff that just drops in our laps. But anyway, hey, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We hope to hear from you again later. Take care.